I spent years ghostwriting for my cousin Caleb, paying for his workshops, even pretending to be his manager, and at his big premiere, nothing, no tag, no mention. It was like I never existed. My family only remembers me when they need saving. You ever find out you don't matter to someone the way you thought you did? Hurts like hell. My name's Rachel. I'm 33 years old. I live in Santa Monica, California, and until recently, I thought I was part of my family's success story. It happened on a Thursday night. I was sitting on the couch, half watching some mindless sitcom rerun, scrolling my phone. That's when my friend Sophie, who's got no filter to save her life, piped up from the armchair. "Oh my God, look at Caleb's premiere. It's everywhere," she said, holding up her phone. I blinked. "Premiere?" I asked. "Yeah, you know, his new play? The one that's supposed to be, like, the next big thing? He had a full red carpet and everything. Look." She tossed her phone onto the couch beside me. I picked it up. There it was, Caleb Monroe, my little cousin, grinning like he owned the world, standing under a huge neon marquee outside the old Starling Theater. Restored Art Deco, massive floral displays, waiters in white jackets carrying champagne. Celebrities were tagging him, press articles already calling him a prodigy. I scrolled, photo after photo. Caleb laughing with some famous director. Caleb posing next to the theater owner. Caleb standing next to, pretty much everyone. Everyone except me. I kept scrolling, slower now. No mention of me. Not a thank you, not a nod, not even a tiny couldn't have done it without, buried somewhere. I wasn't even tagged. It was like I never existed. Sophie noticed my face. "You knew about this, right?" she asked carefully. "Yeah," I lied, tossing her phone back. "Of course." Inside, my chest felt hollow. I thought about the countless nights I'd spent helping Caleb when he first started out, the scripts I edited, the plays I practically ghostwrote, the money I slipped him when he needed it for workshops he couldn't afford, the time I even posed as his manager on some agent calls because he got nervous. I stared at the ceiling, willing myself not to cry over it. Maybe it was stupid to expect anything. Maybe helping people was supposed to be quiet work, invisible work, but tonight, it just felt like erasure. The next morning, I booked a week-long silent meditation retreat at St. Martha's Monastery, 2 hours north along the coast. No phones, no internet, no talking, just me, the ocean, and silence. I didn't tell anyone, didn't post about it. I just packed a bag, left a note for my landlord, and drove. The farther I got from the city, the lighter I felt. When I pulled up to the monastery, it looked like something out of another century. Pale stone walls, battered wood doors, fields stretching out toward cliffs that tumbled into the ocean below. I handed over my phone at the front desk without hesitation. The nun behind the counter smiled kindly. "Welcome," she said softly. "May your mind grow quiet." God, I hoped so. Because right then, I didn't know if I was more hurt or more angry. All I knew was, I wasn't going to sit around waiting to be noticed anymore. I was done playing silent support. I needed to find out who I was without him, and it had to start here, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but the sound of the waves. The first morning at the monastery, I woke up before the sun. The rooms were simple, just a narrow bed, a wooden desk, and a small window looking out over the cliffs. No TV, no radio, no distractions. Just the distant roar of the ocean, steady and low like a heartbeat under everything. I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence wrapping around me like a second skin. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. Meditating? Praying? Staring into space until my brain rewired itself? Instead, my mind drifted back to Caleb. I remembered the first script he ever finished, if you could even call it that. It was a mess. Pages out of order, typos everywhere, characters with the emotional depth of paper dolls. I stayed up 2 nights straight fixing it, rewriting whole sections so it actually made sense. I didn't even put my name on it. I just smiled when he got his first real reading at a local black box theater and said, "You did great." I remembered helping him fake it through agent meetings, back when he thought character arcs were a brand of cereal. I taught him how to pitch. I coached him through writing grant proposals. I even paid for a New York workshop he couldn't afford, telling him it was an investment in our family's future. And every time he succeeded, I told myself it didn't matter that my name wasn't on the program. It didn't matter that the standing ovations and bouquets weren't for me, because it was family. Because lifting him up was the same as winning. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. I pulled on my sneakers and headed outside. A thin, gray mist clung to the grass. I walked along the cliff's edge until I found a spot to sit, watching the sky slowly bleed from black to pink. Sitting there, I started to realize something I had buried deep. Silence had always been my currency with Caleb. With all of them, really. Do the work, stay in the background, don't make a fuss. Be the good cousin, the helpful daughter, the reliable nobody. At first, it felt noble, humble. But now it just felt like erasure. I had made myself invisible on purpose, and they had happily played along. The silence I used to think was generosity wasn't generosity at all. It was abandonment. Of myself, of my dreams, of the voice that used to want to create something with my own name on it. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped being a writer and started being a ghostwriter, literally and figuratively. All those years of telling myself that family meant sacrifice. All those years of making myself small so someone else could shine. I hugged my knees to my chest and stared out at the endless water, feeling the grief of it settle in. It wasn't just Caleb who had betrayed me. I betrayed myself, too. Back at the monastery, the breakfast bell rang. I stood up, brushing the damp grass from my jeans, and made my way back toward the stone halls. It wasn't anger that moved my feet. Not even sadness, really. It was something quieter, something heavier. The sick realization that the hardest part wasn't being forgotten by Caleb. It was realizing how easy I had made it for him. The days at the monastery blurred together. No talking, no texting, no checking the news. Just early morning walks, silent meals, meditation sessions where my legs kept falling asleep and my mind wouldn't shut up no matter how hard I tried. At first, I hated it. Then, slowly, something inside me started to loosen. Without my phone in my hand, without other people's voices cramming into my brain every second, I realized how noisy my life had been. Not just outside, but inside. All the self-doubt, all the second-guessing, all the invisible threads tying me to people who never once thought about tying themselves to me. By the third day, I wasn't thinking about Caleb much at all. At breakfast, one of the monks, Brother Andrew, I think his name was, left a tiny note at each place setting. Just a scrap of paper with one question scribbled on it. What happens when you stop chasing applause? I turned it over in my hands while the others ate in silence. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have an answer. And for once, I didn't panic about not knowing. That same morning, down in the real world, the walls started to crack. I wouldn't know until later, of course. My phone was locked away in a little cubby in the front office, gathering dust. But back home, while I was watching fog roll over the cliffs, Caleb's perfect image was already starting to unravel. It started with a blog post. Some obscure theater critic dug into Caleb's new play, the one everyone was calling bold and revolutionary, and noticed something odd. Whole sections sounded suspiciously familiar. Turns out, years ago, I had written detailed notes for a playwriting workshop Caleb had attended. Character breakdowns, dialogue sketches, thematic outlines. Notes he had begged me to help him with. Notes I had given freely, without thinking twice. Because, again, family. This critic, bless their petty, detail-oriented heart, dug up an old Dropbox folder full of my workshop materials and compared them to Caleb's script. Line for line, scene for scene. The blog post called it what it was, plagiarism. A few theater Twitter accounts picked it up, then a few more. Then a big one, some Broadway actress with 1 million followers, retweeted it with a simple, brutal caption, "Yikes. The dam broke." By the time the story hit the entertainment blogs, people were pulling up receipts from years ago. Screenshots of me praising Caleb's early work, old posts where he vaguely thanked his team without ever mentioning names. Industry friends started whispering, then posting. Small theaters he had worked with before came forward. Producers who had passed on him in the early days hinted that maybe, just maybe, Caleb had always been a little too polished for a newbie. It spread fast. And the thing about the internet? It loves to build people up, but it loves tearing them down even more. Meanwhile, I spent the day in a meditation hall, listening to the ocean bash itself against the cliffs, blissfully unaware. When the evening prayer bell rang, I sat in the garden and watched the sky turn orange and gold. I didn't know it yet, but while I was sitting there, breathing in the cool salt air, the world I had left behind was catching fire. And for the first time in my life, the fire wasn't my responsibility to put out. The last day of the retreat, the front office buzzed me to pick up my phone. I hadn't touched it in a week. Part of me didn't want to. I could already feel the chaos waiting behind the screen, like a dam about to burst. But I knew I couldn't stay off-grid forever. The receptionist handed it over with a kind smile. "Go easy," she said. "The world will still be there tomorrow." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. In the car, parked on the gravel lot outside the monastery gates, I powered it on. The thing practically exploded. Messages piled in so fast my screen froze twice. Texts, missed calls, emails, social media notifications lighting up like a slot machine on a winning streak. Family group chat. "Rachel, please call ASAP. Where are you? This is serious." Texts from numbers I didn't even recognize anymore. "Hey, hope you're okay. Saw what's happening with Caleb. Need to talk. Urgent. Are you planning to make a statement?" Statement? About what? Then Sophie's name popped up. I opened her message first. "Sophie, girl, Caleb is done. Call me." I sat there for a minute, stunned, heart hammering in my chest. Then curiosity got the better of me. I opened Twitter. And there it was. Caleb's smiling face, splashed across thread after thread, post after post, but not in the way he probably dreamed. Headlines calling him a fraud. Memes roasting him mercilessly. Screenshots of my old workshop notes going viral, side by side with pages from his script. The golden boy had fallen hard. I stared at the screen, not sure how to feel. A week ago, this would have cracked me wide open. Now, it felt distant. Like watching a storm hit a city I didn't live in anymore. Then the texts from Caleb started rolling in. First polite. Hey, can you call me? Need some advice. Then frantic. They're coming after me. You have to help. Then furious. Thanks a lot for disappearing when I needed you most. I thought we were family. Family. Of course. Family when he needed saving. Never family when it came time to share the credit. An email from my aunt popped up next. Subject line, important, family meeting. The body of the email was short and loaded. We're all gathering at Aunt Marlene's house tomorrow. We need to discuss how to handle the situation. Please come. Don't make this worse. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel and laughed, a dry, bitter sound that didn't feel anything like joy. It wasn't just Caleb who expected me to fix this. It was all of them. All the people who clapped and cheered for Caleb when he was winning, who treated me like background noise, now suddenly remembered I existed. They needed their fixer back, because who else was going to sweep up the mess? I scrolled through the messages again, reading the desperation between the lines. My mother's tight, chirpy voicemail pretending nothing had happened. My uncle's text, just show up and be supportive, Rachel, no drama. Caleb's partner texting me out of the blue, asking if I would clear the air online. I sat back, my phone buzzing like a live wire in my lap. A week ago, I would have rushed to smooth things over, drafted the perfect apology statement, set up crisis meetings, held Caleb's hand through it. A week ago, I would have burned myself to the ground to save him. But today, I wasn't so sure I owed him anything. I showed up at Aunt Marlene's house late on purpose. The place was packed, every folding chair dragged out from the garage, plates of half-eaten Costco cookies on the counter, voices low and anxious, like a funeral where no one wanted to say the wrong thing. Caleb was there, slouched in a corner, wearing a hoodie pulled up over his face like that would protect him from reality. His partner sat stiffly at the kitchen table, eyes red from crying. My mom spotted me first. She lit up like I was a life raft. Rachel, she said too loudly, rushing over to hug me. Thank God you're here. I stiffened but let her squeeze me. Across the room, Caleb lifted his head. His eyes locked onto mine, bloodshot, wild, and for a second, I saw the boy I used to help with high school essays. The boy who used to call me his secret weapon. That second passed fast. He stood up and pointed at me. You abandoned me, he shouted. The room fell silent. You knew this would happen, he said, voice cracking. You could have shut it down. You could have defended me, but you didn't. You just disappeared and let everyone tear me apart. I walked in slowly, pulled out a chair at the dining room table, and dropped a heavy binder onto it. A thick one. The kind with color-coded tabs and sticky notes poking out of the sides. What's that supposed to be? Caleb sneered, arms crossed. I flipped it open calmly. Proof, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't make a speech. I just started sliding pages across the table one by one. Bank transfers. Receipts from playwriting workshops I paid for under my own name. Old emails where Caleb begged for my help tightening up his scripts. Drafts where my tracked changes made up half the damn story. Theater grant applications with paragraphs he copied word for word from my old writing samples. One by one, I laid it all out. The room stayed dead silent, the only sound the soft shuffle of paper hitting wood. My uncle leaned over to read closer. Aunt Marlene's mouth fell open. Caleb's partner sat back in her chair like she'd been punched. No, this is twisted, Caleb said, voice shaking. You're making me look bad on purpose. You're jealous. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Jealous? Of what, Caleb? Being accused of stealing? Watching the career I built for you crash and burn while you blame everyone but yourself? My voice was calm, ice cold. Across the room, my mom opened her mouth, probably to plead for peace, but Caleb's partner pushed back her chair and stood up. She didn't say a word to Caleb, just grabbed her purse with shaking hands and left the house, the door slamming hard behind her. Caleb flinched like she had slapped him. I stood too, slipping the last page into the binder and closing it with a quiet snap. I'm not here to fight with you, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to make one thing clear. I looked around at the family, all the people who had clapped when Caleb succeeded, all the people who had looked the other way when he erased me. I'm not cleaning up this mess, I said. I'm not covering for him. I'm not fixing it. And I'm definitely not going to feel bad for not being the scapegoat anymore. Nobody said a word. I tucked the binder under my arm and headed for the door. Rachel, wait, my mom called after me, desperate. But I didn't. I walked out of that house and into the cool evening air, the sound of the door clicking shut behind me, and for the first time in my entire life, I didn't carry their shame on my back. I left it all sitting right there at that ugly old dining room table, exactly where it belonged. The next morning, I sat in a little coffee shop near the beach, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. I wasn't sure why I came here, maybe because it felt safe, neutral. The kind of place where nobody knew my name, nobody expected anything from me. The sun was just starting to climb over the buildings outside, painting the sidewalk gold. Inside, the only sounds were the low hum of the espresso machine and a kid behind the counter singing quietly under his breath. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I sighed, half dreading it. Probably another furious text from my mother, or a guilt trip from one of my aunts. but when I checked the screen, it was a voice message. From Uncle Pete. I blinked. I hadn't heard from him in years. He was the black sheep of the family, the one everyone pretended didn't exist after he blew up at a family reunion 15 years ago and basically walked out of our lives. I barely remembered what his voice even sounded like. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button. Then I hit it. His voice came through, rough and low, like he hadn't spoken much lately. "Hey, Rachel. It's Pete. I heard what happened yesterday." A long pause. I could hear traffic in the background, the crackle of an old car radio. "You did the right thing, kid," he said finally. "This family, they know how to take and forget. They forget the ones who build them up. They forget the ones who stay quiet." Another pause. "But not all of us forget. I see you. I've always seen you. And I'm damn proud of you." The message ended there. No begging, no expectations. Just those words. I sat there for a long time, staring at the blinking timestamp. I played it again. And then again. Each time, it hit a little deeper. Not because it was loud, or dramatic, or full of promises, but because it was real. Someone finally saw me. Really saw me. Not as a backup plan, not as a fixer, not as the quiet one holding everything together behind the scenes. Just me. I wiped my eyes quickly with the sleeve of my sweatshirt before anyone could notice. Took a deep breath. Outside, the tide was pulling out, leaving the sand glistening and new. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and stood up, feeling something inside me settle for the first time in years. It was small. It was quiet, but it was mine. I spent the next few weeks closing doors. First, I went through every shared account Caleb and I still had tied together. Old writing software subscriptions, a Dropbox folder, a shared email from when we thought we'd build a brand together. Gone. Deleted. Cancelled. Next, I shut down anything I was still quietly paying for. Workshop memberships, mailing lists, even a subscription to an arts magazine Caleb once insisted he needed for inspiration but never read. For years, I kept the lights on behind the curtain so he could perform out front. Not anymore. One by one, I untangled myself from the life I had built around him. Each click, each confirmation email felt like peeling off a weighted blanket I didn't even realize I had been carrying. Some days, I still felt that old tug, the instinct to reach out, to check in, to smooth things over. But I didn't. Instead, I started building something new. It started small, a cheap domain name, a free template for a website. I stayed up late tweaking it, sipping coffee until my hands shook. Not because I wanted it to be perfect, because I wanted it to feel like mine. By the end of the week, the site was live. Simple, clean. Just my name at the top, Rachel Monroe, and underneath it, a short bio. "You know my work. Now meet me." I stared at it for a long time, grinning like an idiot. I got a friend to take a new headshot. Nothing fancy. Just me sitting on the steps outside my apartment, wearing jeans and a real, tired smile. No hiding, no pretending to be someone else's invisible helper. I updated my LinkedIn, created a new professional email address, put out a quiet post offering freelance editing services, under my name, for real this time. No more ghostwriting for people who didn't even have the decency to remember who helped them climb. Work trickled in slowly at first. A short story contest needing judges. A community theater script in desperate need of polishing. Small stuff, but it was mine. Every line, every edit, every deadline with my name on the invoice. I didn't post big announcements. Didn't throw a launch party or bombard people's feeds with self-promotion. I just worked. Quietly. Steadily. Authentically. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing someone else's dream. I wasn't patching up someone else's spotlight. I was carving out a space of my own, small, maybe, but honest. And every day, it grew a little bit bigger. A month later, I sat at my kitchen table, sipping bad coffee out of a chipped mug, staring at the sunrise through the window. It looked almost fake, the way the cliffs blushed pink, the way the water caught fire with light. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and posted the photo I had taken months ago at the monastery. The cliffs at dawn, the ocean spread out endlessly below. No selfies, no carefully staged poses. Just the view that had saved me when I thought I might drown. I typed a caption, "When you're not in the program, write your own play." I almost didn't hit post. Then I thought about the years I spent making sure everyone else had their moment. The years I stayed quiet so others could be loud. The years I told myself visibility wasn't for people like me. And I tapped share. I put my phone down and went back to my coffee. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal, just a quiet little promise to myself. But by noon, it had blown up. First, a few likes from old workshop friends. Then shares. Then comments. Writers I hadn't heard from in years reposted it with little notes like, "Needed this today," and "Big truth." Even people I didn't know, strangers, started tagging it. I got a notification that made me snort into my coffee. Caleb's ex-partner had liked the post. I guess the irony wasn't lost on them either. Meanwhile, the family group chat, well, it exploded. First a string of, "From my mom." Then a passive-aggressive message from Aunt Marlene about airing dirty laundry. Then a full meltdown from Caleb himself. "Wow, real classy, Rachel. Unbelievable you're making this about you. You're no better than the people who tore me down." I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to be the bigger person, because I had better things to do. I was busy packing. Tomorrow, I was flying to a writer's retreat in Oregon, not as someone's assistant, not as someone's plus one, not even as a volunteer editor, as the keynote speaker. They wanted me to talk about storytelling, real storytelling, about finding your voice when it's been buried under everyone else's for too long. They wanted me to tell the truth. And this time, for once, I wasn't going to hide behind anyone else's name. I zipped up my suitcase, double-checked my boarding pass, and smiled. Not the fake, polite smile I used to wear like armor. A real one, tired, a little scarred, but real. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't even about Caleb anymore. It was about me. About choosing to be seen, choosing to stand on a stage that I built for myself, choosing to speak, even if my voice shook. As I stepped out into the fresh morning air, my phone buzzed again. I didn't even look. I just kept walking.